Hey there, Cayman Climate Champions. Welcome back to a brand new adventure with me, Bella, your Climate Ranger. Today we are exploring some of the beautiful forests we have here in Cayman, both here in the Botanic Park and at the Mastic Trail. We're going to learn a little bit about the different plants and different kind of animals that live within the forests and why it is so important that we protect them. Are you ready? Because I am. Let's go. Today we are talking to Forest Ranger Stuart Mailer, all about the incredible variety of forests we have here in the Cayman Islands. Hi, Stuart.
Hi, good morning, Bella.
Thanks for joining us today. Can you tell us what different kinds of forests do we actually have in Cayman? Because there's a lot of trees, but I know they're not all technically the same forest.
No, it's a difficult question to answer in the sense that the forests tend to grade into one another. They're not as black and white in one type and then bang, you're in another type. They tend to sort of gradually change as you move from one environment to another. Presently we're in an area that's mixed between nice big old mahogany trees like this one behind us, but around us also is logwood, which is considered an invasive species.
Okay.
We're going to be going through a low area where we're close to the groundwater, the water table it's called, and there we have a stand that's dominated by black mangroves. And then as we continue on down, we go into what is known as seasonally flooded forest. These are also low areas, but they're not at all salty. And in fact, they get flooded with rainwater. And there you have a mixture of various species, but I'll talk about the species when we get there, in particular red birches, mahoganies, royal palms.
Oh my goodness.
A whole variety of different trees grow in those areas.
Okay, well, let's go get into it. Let's head down this trail and find those spots.
All right, let's go.
After you.
Sure.
Okay, so where are we now?
We are in the middle of a black mangrove forest. Wow. This is one of these flooded forests that I was mentioning earlier. You'll notice looking down at the ground, you can see a little bit of water coming out through the mud. And you have these brown snorkel-like things coming from the mud. Those are actually the roots or the breathing roots of the black mangrove. We're standing here beside a trunk. And you'll notice that this trunk here is a little bit bigger than the surrounding trees. This is the remains of a large black mangrove that was growing here before Hurricane Ivan in 2004. Oh. And what we have here now is regrowth since 2004. So this, before the storm, this was an incredibly beautiful high canopy forest. Looking up here, you'd be looking up into the tops of trees, perhaps 60 or 70 feet tall.
And old, I guess, too.
And pretty old. And unfortunately, the hurricane killed most of those trees. There are a few remaining ones, but what we have left here now is really recovering quite remarkably.
And why are these forests so important for our native species and migratory species that come through Cayman?
Well, this is their home. I think that's where the word habitat comes from. This habitat is specific to the plants and animals that live here. This time of year, we have the migratory birds. Migratory birds breed in North America, some all the way up into the Arctic Circle. And then when they're all fledged and ready to move, the parents and the young all come down to the Caribbean, and they spend most of the life here in the warm weather.
In the forest.
In the forest.
And that is why they're so important. Then what about our native species?
The only truly native mammals on Cayman today are bats, of which we have 10 different types.
Okay, well, let's wander a bit further down because I know we have some different forests to discover.
Sure, let's go.
Okay, cool. Okay, we've come a bit further down. The wind is rustling through the trees now. We're in another really interesting spot. So what are we surrounded by right now? Well,
now we're in a different area of seasonally flooded forest. Unlike the black mangrove area we were in before that floods with salty water, this area floods with fresh rainwater. And as for what we've got here, well, different species of trees grow in this environment. This is a bitter plum tree. That is a tree that dominates in this particular zone. Seems to like to get its roots wet, its feet wet. But we also have other trees. Back down the trail there we came underneath a manchineel tree. That tree has a reputation of being the most dangerous tree in the world. I don't know if that's really true.
Oh my gosh.
But every part of that tree is poisonous. So we also have the mahogany trees in here. And let's see, this tree just over our head here, this is a this is a dryland smokewood. Not very dry in here, but there are two different species of smokewood. Both grow in this particular environment because we're just on the edge with the low-lying spots with the mud and the drier spots to the side.
And what about the palms?
Oh, the palms. I forgot the #1 tree in here. That is the beautiful royal palm. That's a native palm. There are actually only 3 species of truly native palm in Cayman. There's the silver thatch. I think everybody knows about the silver thatch.
Right.
And there's a very similar bull thatch palm. It's very much like the silver thatch in appearance, but if you look at the underside of the leaves, they're not shining in silver like the silver thatch is. And then you have the beautiful, tall, majestic royal palms. You tend to see those planted like down the entrance to big fancy buildings, hotels and the like, but their true native home is this swamp, on the edges of these swampy areas.
So I think we have one more spot to go visit, and that's the Botanic Park, to look at the forest there.
Okay, well let's go.
Let's head. Okay, we are in the Botanic Park now, and we have been walking down this beautiful woodland trail. And where are we now, Stuart?
Well, we're in a section of seasonally flooded forest. This is a little bit different where we were last on the Mastic Trail, but we're surrounded here by plants that are, if they're lying low, they get very wet. This is a wetland smokewood. We saw a dryland smokewood on the Mastic Trail. This one is living in an area that you can see looking around us. It's a sort of tide line where the water sits when it's been raining heavily. The trees growing here are adapted for the particular conditions. It's very, very rocky ground, but these low-lying areas, I say, that fill with water. So you've got a mixture of plants just a few feet away that are living in drier condition on higher ground, and then the wetland smokewood down in the hollow like this. And of course, the animals that live here vary depending on where they are, what they're doing. Get lots of different animals. You can probably hear some of the birds in the background. Loads and loads of birds in these forests, so it's a very variable forest, very variable animal life. Aside from the birds, we get snakes. Most people in Cayman know the Cayman racer snake. They're very common around. But we also get a tiny little pygmy boa who'll sit in the palm of your hand. And yeah, they are kind of cute.
They're so cute.
Oh, you've seen one?
I have. They're very small.
Okay, yeah. They're hard to find. Mostly, I don't think they are that uncommon, but they tend to live in like dead logs, places where people wouldn't normally go looking. And they are very, very still most of the time in the daytime. So I've had somebody tell me, oh, there's a dead snake on the trail. It wasn't dead at all. It was just, I don't know, chilling out.
We also have really cool plants growing off of other plants. So what might this be? Or these little...
Oh, okay. Interesting plant you just pointed out here. This one is a fern. It's called a resurrection fern. And the reason being is it comes back from the dead, or so it appears. In the dry season, for much of the year, this fern just looks dried up and gray or brown and dead. But then a few hours after the rains come, it sprouts back to life. The other plants you were pointing out, these are tillandsias is a scientific name, but most people call them air plants. And this particular air plant is known as a wild pine. Looks a bit like the top of a pineapple. And
they just grow anywhere they can get their roots into? Do they grow on certain trees?
Yeah, they're not particular about the types of trees so much. Some they tend to be found in greater abundance on things like the wetland smokewood. I guess because it has very chunky bark, they can get a good grip. But they're not stealing food from that tree. They're not parasites. They're epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants. And they can also grow quite successfully just on the ground, on the rocks.
How interesting. So we're surrounded by such a diverse, we've got cactus over here too, such a diverse plant life. Okay, we're gonna see one more spot, I think, right? If we're lucky.
If we're lucky. Hopefully a cart will be along for us in a few minutes.
Okay, let's go check it out. Whee! So So we are in our last location. We can hear the Cayman parrots squawking away behind us. Where are we right now? This is very cool.
Well, we are in a very special environment here. This is actually dominated by logwood. That's a tree that I mentioned over at the mastic is considered an invasive species, something we want to get rid of. But I wouldn't want to get rid of this particular stand of logwood. It's really rather pretty with the water and all the epiphytic plants, the plants that grow on other plants. And so this is all underwater now, but the logwoods love that. And this is basically their natural environment.
And we had one other type of forest that we didn't get a chance to see, which was called the old growth forest.
The old growth forest is actually the heart of the Mastic Reserve. That's really why the Mastic Trail is where the Mastic Trail is it crosses over high ground, some of the highest land in Cayman. In fact, the exact highest point of the island, if you don't count the dump, is called the mountain, and it's in the Mastic Reserve, and it goes up to about 72 feet above sea level. Now the trees in Cayman tend to grow taller, bigger, the higher above the water table they are. And growing that high above the water table, those trees are really quite massive, some of them.
Okay, and what kind of species are at these different heights? What kind of tree species do you have?
Well, the name of the Mastic Reserve is a bit of a clue. The mastic tree is one of the particular species that grows in that environment. But you also have the mahoganies, which we saw already this morning, and a number of other different trees. Red birches are very common. The wild figs are exceedingly common. I could
go on forever.
Go on. Well, there's about 100 trees or so in Cayman, different species.
Well, Stuart, these places are so magical, and I've loved being in here with you this morning. So thank you so much for bringing us with you.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And let's try and get as many kids to see these beautiful places and protect them, right?
Absolutely, yes, it needs protecting.
Oh my gosh, Stuart, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Remember that you are empowered and capable of making meaningful changes every day for the future of our islands. Now get on out here and explore our home. I'm gonna keep wandering down the woodland trail to see what I can find. I'll see you later, Climate Rangers.